I'll chant a mantra or two, and we can begin. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I thought we could discuss perspective. Perspective means the angle in which you view something. Any object can be viewed from different angles. And when you view even the same object from different angles, it can appear different or you can understand different things about it. And I was thinking just how I was raised and likely how many of you were raised. I felt, if when I look back now, I feel like I was kind of being encouraged or trained to deal with what was right in front of me, to figure out, you're going to have to make some money in this world. So you're going to have to get a job. When you have the job, then you're going to be able to get the home and, find someone to marry and kind of settle down, and you'll be able to survive in this world. So take care of that. Focus on that. When I hit my late teens, I started getting interested in spirituality. And I began to read different books on spirituality. And they were giving me another perspective. They were helping me kind of zoom out and look at my life, not just like what was right in front of me, but try to understand how I exist on a much longer time scale. For instance, the idea that this life is just one life of many that I've lived before. That was a new idea to me. That hadn't been shared with me before, that idea. How about all of you? Is that new to many of you? It can be life-changing, right? That this, I was sharing recently, my friend Raghunath, who does the podcast with me. He once, the first night he spent in a Krishna temple like this. I think they have monk night here sometimes, right? Or monk week, live like a monk for a weekend. Monk challenge, very good. So he did that, but there wasn't a program. He stepped into the temple and said, "Could I spend a night or two here and kind of see what it's like?" And they said, "Sure, you can stay here." And then he was living with the monks for the day and doing their different responsibilities in the kitchen with them and whatever they're doing. And one of them turned to him and said, "Ray, you should just give this one life to Krishna." And he was like, "One life? Give one? That's You're speaking about it like it's like a small, just one. That's all I've got. All I have is this life. You're telling me that to give everything." But you can understand there are two very different perspectives. From his perspective, if I give this life, I've given everything. But from the monk's perspective, one life is just a quick little thing. And we've used so many of them in so many different ways. Just use this one in this special way and see what the results will be. So different perspective, a lot of what reading these ancient texts do for us is they help us zoom out and see the world from a broader perspective. And one way they do that, I wanted to just talk on this subject tonight, is a text like the Bhagavad Gita or the Puranas, also ancient Indian texts, or the Upanishads. They speak about the world that we're moving in. Sometimes they'll speak of it like it's an illusion or a type of illusion, illusory in a certain way. Not that it's entirely unreal, but that it can be confusing. It can seem to be something that it's not. Sometimes they would use analogies like dreams or reflections. And in today's world, even a stronger analogy is virtual reality. That the yogis were essentially saying that we're moving through a virtual reality. And it's a virtual reality that's governed by certain laws. So we can say the world that we're moving through, according to the yogis and according to Bhagavad Gita, is governed by certain unseen laws, right? And I'm not talking like kind of conspiracy theory, Illuminati, things like that, that something's being run in the background that we can't see. But that's what the yogis are saying, that there is something in the background, that there are laws operating here that we may not be aware of. And if we were aware of them, we'd be so much better able to navigate this and really understand what it is that we're meant to learn or how we're meant to grow through this life, rather than just looking at what's right in front of you, your immediate material needs, trying to understand what am I meant to understand from this, and what's the possibility of where I can go. So the yogis, if they were here today, and they are here today, the yogis of today would compare this world to a virtual reality. And I was just thinking, imagine if you had a friend. Well, imagine if, do we have any people here that are good at computer coding and all of that kind of thing? Raise your hand if you. I don't know if you would have the ability to like design a virtual reality. Imagine it's pretty complicated. A little bit. You could maybe play around with that kind of thing. Imagine if you had a friend and your friend said, I wonder what it's like to fly. And you said, well, anyone can get in a plane and fly. And they said, no, not like in an airplane, but really fly like a bird. What it feels like to with your own power to lift off and fly wherever you want to go, and soar like a bird soars. It must be such a thrill. And you said, well, I could design that for you in virtual reality. And they said, what do you mean? They said, you give me a little time and I can create that experience for you. And they're like, I would love to do that. So you spend some time and you create that that program, a virtual reality program for a flight. And once you've got it together, you invite your friend to your home and you tell them, okay, come on in. And you say, lie down here. And then you kind of hook them up with the goggles and the headphones. And I don't know if they'd have some kind of apparatus, like a wing-like apparatus. And maybe there's a fan, that's going to make, is going to blow a breeze on it. And you plug them into it and you say, okay, go for it. Start flapping, and they start to go like this. And next thing they know, they're taking off. And now they're flying through the air. They feel, we know they're just lying here, right? They're just lying in one spot, but they feel like they're taking off. They're lifting off and they're flying above the ground and it's getting higher and higher. And as they get higher and higher, the perspective changes as they're looking down on the earth. Everything starts to look very small and everything starts to become more quiet up there. All the noise of the earth are rising above it. And they're soaring just like a bird. And they're thrilled. This is exactly what they want to experience, and now they know what it's like. And they soar around for some time like this, and they go this way, and they go that way, and they come back. And eventually they come back and they land. And they take off the headphones and the goggles, and they say, oh my God, that was incredible. You really did it. I couldn't believe it, but now I know what it's like. I really felt what it was like to be a bird. Thank you so much. I always wanted to know what that was like. And then you say to them, well, is there anything else you'd like to do? And they say, what do you mean? Well, whatever you want, I can design. All right? Tell me what your desire is and I can put it together for you. Really? Anything? Yeah, what do you want? And then they start to give the whole checklist of like all of their desires. I wonder what it's like to be very wealthy. I wonder what it's like to be very famous. To live in mansions and everybody knows me. When I walk down the street, everybody's like saying, "Oh, look, it's him, it's her." Beautiful girlfriends, boyfriends, all of these desires. And you say, yeah, I can do that for you. And you program all of this for them. And then they come back and you say, go ahead, plug in, enter your world, you know, and they do it. And they get caught up in that world. All their desires are being fulfilled in that virtual world. It's kind of like a fantasy for them. And what happens is you begin to realize, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe they're lost in that world now and they don't want to come out. And it begins to become kind of sad that they're sitting there like a potato, um, e- experiencing some kind of artificial experience, thinking that this is some kind of deep fulfillment. And they're stuck and they're lost and they don't want to come back to the reality. And you realize, now this is a really important point. You realize that if I just take them out of it, if I just shut the virtual reality down, even though they'll be out of it, they'll always be wanting to be back in it. You understand? So your goal is, I want them to come out, but I want them to come out of their own volition. I want them to decide, I don't want to be in the virtual reality anymore. I want reality. So what would you do? Okay. And what I would suggest is that this world is like that we're moving around in a virtual reality. But certain programs have been downloaded and installed in this virtual reality to help us realize this is not our real home, and there's something more real, and there's something more satisfying beyond the world that we're moving around in. Okay, interesting. And these laws are the laws, these forces are the forces that govern the material world, the virtual reality that we're moving through. This is how the yogis speak of it. And it's like this. If you want, your friend is moving around that virtual world and they're doing whatever they want. Well, what if you downloaded on the internet a program and installed it into the virtual reality, and that program were called time? Okay. What I'm suggesting is there's actually 3 programs that are downloaded and installed into this world. One is called time, another one is called karma, and another one is called the gunas, the modes of material nature. The Bhagavad Gita is going to speak about all 3 of these at length. Really give us understanding, and other Puranas too. They give really good information about how this world is something like a virtual reality, and how certain programs are installed into it that make it a little uncomfortable, make it a little challenging for us. Imagine if you installed time into this virtual reality. At one point, your friend was moving around that virtual world, and everything they had, there was no threat to it, right? If they had a house, they could depend on having that house. If they had their fame, they were going to be famous always. If they had a lover, that lover was going to stay with them, right? If they had a body, a beautiful body in that virtual world, that body's not going to grow old. But then you do this move where you download this program and you install time. It changes everything. Everything that they have in that virtual reality now has a time limit on it. Everything is moving and shifting and deteriorating in ways that it wasn't like that before, right? When we speak of time, if you just stop someone on the street and ask them what is time, they're probably going to speak in terms of measurements, right? There's seconds and minutes and hours and days, etc. But the philosophers think of time as more like a power, right? We take we take the amount of time that it takes for the Earth to rotate on its axis. We measure that and we call it a day, right? And then we take the amount of time that it takes for the Earth to revolve one time around the sun, and we measure that and we call that a year. But what the yogis are interested in is, what is the force that makes the Earth spin on its axis? What is the force that's holding and propelling the planets around the sun? That force is called time. It's the force that moves things. It's the force that changes everything and ultimately destroys everything that's made out of matter. And so the yogis were trying to show us that we're living in a world made of matter. Even our own bodies are made out of matter. But we are something that's eternal. We're not made of the same energy. This is an artificial type of realm that we're moving through. It's not consistent with our true nature, which is eternal. And we're moving around in bodies, in vehicles, in circumstances that are changing by the force of time, and we lose it all by the force of time. And that makes us very uncomfortable here. It makes us fearful. It brings pain into our world when we lose what's dear to us, right? Someone becomes famous, right? And then someone else becomes more famous. Right? My friend Raghunath was just telling me about this too, because he's in a band. He's been in a band for a long time. The band has a certain amount of fame. But then, when you're in a band and you've been working hard for years to try to break through, and you got a little bit of fame, and then some new band comes out of nowhere. They're not even that good, and suddenly, like, they're more famous than you. You're like, what is going on? And now nobody's interested in your band anymore. And now you're opening up for these other bands, and what you had and what you worked for is slipping through your fingers, right? So what to speak of our own bodies, having to look in the mirror and watch them age, right? not as easy to get up in the morning, not as easy to move around, can't do all the same things we used to be able to do. The bodies of our loved ones, right? We have to watch them deteriorate and fall apart. Whatever it is in this world, because of this force of time, if there was no time, we would feel much more comfortable in this world, and we would never inquire into what's beyond, just like the person in the virtual reality. But because it's been downloaded and installed, we're like, I don't know if I'm quite comfortable here. We should start to think that way. Right? Now, karma is another thing, right? Imagine this person moving through their virtual world, just fulfilling their desires, doing what it is that they want to do. And they don't have to worry about any repercussions, right? Maybe they want to have a romance with this person, right? And the virtual reality is fulfilling that desire. Well, there's another person. I want to have a romance with them, right? Okay, I can do that, right? No repercussions, right? Well, there's someone else, and there's someone else, right? Um, maybe our fame comes at the expense at someone else's expense. Maybe our wealth comes at someone else's expense, but we're not paying any price for that, right? So if we downloaded and installed the law of karma into there, what is karma? Karma is this cosmic sensitivity training, right? It's made to make us. It's designed in such a way where it rewards us when we're sensitive to the experience of others. It punishes us when we're callous to that, right? It's trying to help us ultimately come to a level where we can be selfless, thoughtful of others, and ultimately to love, because that's part of the whole mystery of what we're meant to learn and developed to break out of the virtual reality that we're in, right? But imagine your friend there; they're going around in that virtual reality doing whatever they want to do. Suddenly, there's consequences for everything. Suddenly, oh, you have a romance with this person, but then you go and have a romance with someone else, and you hurt the first person, and now you know you're going to get hurt in the same way, right? It was just all fun. And now there's something else going on in this world where I'm feeling emotional stress, fear, pain, right? I have to be very careful how I move around this world. You all saw the film Groundhog Day, right? It's a very interesting film, and it plays with some of these kind of ideas where a person's living a day over and over and over again. It took them a while to realize I'm meant to learn something here, right? And eventually, when they learn the lesson, then they transcend. Then the day doesn't repeat again. When the lesson's been learned, then they move on. It's evolve or repeat, right? That's what this world is. It's evolve or repeat, right? If we don't evolve, then that law of karma keeps sending back reactions to us. And the more that we respond in a way where we don't learn selflessness, then the more painful karma comes our way. And the more that we do understand about selflessness, the more we're rewarded in this world. And at a certain point, we can develop, if we hear from those that have a broader perspective, we can understand that actually, no matter what I do, this world is up, down, up, down. If you take the law of karma and you take time and you put them both into my virtual reality, my experience is going to be going up and down and up and down and up and down, right? And those thoughtful people, when they develop that perspective, instead of just looking at what's right in front of me, when you're always just looking at what's right in front of you, you're always thinking, I just need to take one more step and everything's going to be good. I just need to take one more step and everything. I just need to get the right job. I just need to find the right soulmate. I just need to get the right house now, right? Or we just need to advance a little bit more in business and we're going to be more well established. It's always something that's just one step away before we'll be happy. And then we'll be happy, right? But when you have that broader perspective and you can look down and you can see, oh, that's the way it's working, you never get there. You never get there on the material plane. You can't find that satisfaction through matter. It can only be experienced through spirit, which never changes, which the law of time is not affected, which is beyond the law of karma. Right? You begin to hear about that perspective, and then you can begin to see the world through those eyes. Yeah. And then you do one more thing. You download one more program into that virtual world. And that program is called the gunas, or the modes of material nature. This is something that every yogi really needs to know about. Bhagavad Gita speaks about it in a lot of depth. The whole chapters in the Bhagavad Gita are developed into understanding it. But it says that it's a really far out thing to think about. Just like nowadays they have video screens, and they're called RGB, correct? Red, green, blue. In other words, a video screen will be made out of thousands of pixels, many thousands of pixels. And those pixels, every one of those pixels is one of three colors. The pixel is either red, green, or blue, right? There's no pixel in there that's like orange or anything like that. They're all one of these three. But those three colors blend to take on the whole range of colors, and also to create any type of form on that screen. You understand? Whatever form you see, it could be a house, it could be a mountain, it could be a tree, it could be an animal, but it's all being created by a combination of those three colored pixels. So the yogis in Bhagavad Gita is saying that the world that we're moving in is like a 3D RGB kind of thing. That there are three energies in this world called sattva, rajas, and tamas. You can say the translations are, there's really no perfect English translations, but we could say the mode of goodness or the mode of purity, you could say. The mode of passion. So it's a mode that has a lot to do with unfulfilled desire, hankering, and the mode of ignorance, which has a lot to do with destruction. What they say is that the entire world that we're moving through is made out of these three energies, and any object that we encounter is built out of a combination of these three. But within every object, one of the three predominates. One of the three energies predominates, and that energy radiates from that object. So when you come in contact with that object and you take it in through your senses, the influence of that particular predominating energy enters through your senses into your mind and begins to shape it. This is actually very scary if you think about it. What the yogis are saying is there are outside subtle influences that enter into our mind, and without our even knowing it, they adjust our emotions, they adjust our desires, they adjust the intensity of them. They can turn them up, turn them down, like that. That's all going on without our knowledge of it. So when you know about it, then what the yogis do is they try to move in such a way towards enlightenment. Now, these modes have three different influences. The sattva guna, when you contact it, the feeling that you get is a feeling of contentment or happiness, satisfaction. I don't need anything more than I have. Everything is good. And it's said from that platform also, the effect that it has on one is a very clear and luminous mind. You can think very clearly in that state of mind, contentment. Whereas the mode of passion, rajaguna, is just about the exact opposite. It's discontentment. I don't have what I need to be happy. I need to get something more before I'll be satisfied, right? And it's said that when that becomes the predominant feeling that you have, then you can never turn within. You can never practice yoga. You can never understand the self, because your awareness will be focused on the externals that need to be adjusted before you're satisfied. You understand? So therefore, this rajaguna, it leads to hankering and dissatisfaction, right? Suffering, ultimately. And then the tamaguna, the mode of ignorance, is the darkest of the modes. It has a lot to do with destruction, laziness, and even self-destruction, right? That mode is, it's some people you see, creation is not their thing, destruction is their thing. They don't know how to build. They don't know how to preserve something. They're just, I can think of certain politicians. They just break everything that came before. right? And so that mode is particularly destructive. I know when I was a kid, I grew up in New York City in the early '80s, and it was a wilder city at that time. When I was like 15 years old, I could go into the bars on the Lower East Side, order drinks. I could go to all night clubs that wouldn't you wouldn't get out of that club until it was like 6 a.m. You know, and in the summertime, especially, some of my friends would really get caught up in that life. They would basically sleep during the day and go out all night. And everyone that got and by the way, the yogis say that actually the early morning is the time of sattvaguna, right? And the middle of the day is the time of rajaguna, and the nighttime is the time of tamaguna. And it's a fact; it's the most destructive time. You go into any jail, and you're gonna find, at nighttime people are just like, going out, getting drunk, doing crazy stuff, and getting arrested. That's what it's full of. Have any of you ever spent a little time in a jail pen before? I have a couple times. I'll admit. It's basically drunk people in there. You know, um, always has something to do with drugs or alcohol, for the most part. Most of the people in there. But I saw that amongst my own friends, those that got caught up in living that life, it was always destructive. It led towards addiction. It led to a lot of pain, a lot of destruction and pain. So now this is something that the yogis need to know, right? That the virtual reality that I'm moving through, everything has consequences, and I need to move towards enlightenment. I need to associate with people that when I associate with them, I feel more content and luminous. I need to go to places where I feel more content and luminous, right? I need to listen to music that makes me feel more content and luminous. Eat food that makes me feel more content and luminous, like this. So these are the influences that have been programmed into our virtual reality that we're moving through, right? With the knowledge of this, right, it can give us a whole different perspective. It can really help us understand what it is that we're moving through, where we can go, what is our potential, right, and where the hope lies, and where there's no hope, right? The yogis can get that idea. There is no hope for lasting happiness in a world composed of matter, right? But that this world of matter isn't the only world, right? That this world of matter is something like a dream, that it is something like a virtual reality. And just with the right information and the right perspective, I can learn to move through it in a way where I'm moving towards that freedom. So maybe I'll stop here and see if there are questions. Is that all right? Could I get some water, please? Are there any questions? Yes. Remind me of your name.
Samba.
Samba, that's right.
When we think of gunas, sattva, rajo, tamo, would you think of tamas and rajas as something necessarily negative, or is this something that we need in order to survive and in order for the world to exist? So, like completely rejecting tamas, or even like tamas is rest, basically, right? So, and rajas is ambition. So it's like ambition, rest, and stability. So maybe like, I've always thought that we need a balance rather than rejecting one versus the other.
It depends what we're talking about. If we're talking about, for instance, like Ayurveda, then there may be some room for these things. But when we're talking about yoga and we're talking about our mind, we want our mind to rise above those lower modes. We want to transcend them. And it should be clear that we could call Rajaguna ambition, but it's not that. Sattvaguna actually has unbreakable determination. You see, Rajaguna, because it lacks clarity and because it's so much based on unfulfilled desire, our vision becomes clouded. And so the determination, or you could say the ambition, of one in the Rajaguna is very fragile because they're dependent on external, because they don't have an internal contentment. When things don't go just the way that they want them to go, they become disappointed. Whereas the person in Sattvaguna they're already content. This is what Bhagavad Gita is saying: be content, give it your best effort, and regardless of what the results are, be steady. But you can only do that if you have internal contentment. But for someone that's influenced by Rajaguna, because their contentment is based on externals, thank you. Their determination can be broken very easily. This is what Krishna 248, text 248 in the Gita, where Krishna says to Arjuna, be steady in victory or defeat. And he says, samatvam yoga uchate. Such even-mindedness is called yoga, right? Whether Arjuna, victory or defeat, ultimately that's not up to you. All you can do is give your best effort and do it with detachment. But it's only in the mode of goodness that we have that detachment. Rajaguna, by definition, is attachment. And so the person in the mode of goodness can have unbreakable ambition, unbreakable determination. But they're not confused thinking my happiness is dependent on the result of it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
I think for practical life, like for example, Alexander, he went to all the way conquering the world.
Yeah.
I don't think he was like. Would you say that he was not motivated by sattva and more by rajas?
I mean, I don't know his history and what the purpose of it was. I can't comment on his state of mind. I do know this. I'm sorry that I'm forgetting. I remember a story about him where he met a yogi. Do you know that story?
No.
I wish I could remember it now. Yeah, I don't know very much about him. Okay. I'm sorry. Question in the back. This microphone is for the recording. It won't amplify your voice in the room.
Hi, thank you so much.
No, I'm saying it's.
Oh, it's not going to. Sorry.
It's for the recording.
Okay, perfect. I was just wondering that you gave the example of a software, a virtual reality, and
Yes.
design. When you talk about really how systems are designed, right? It could be say capitalism, or just how exploitative a lot of the systems that we live in are. Doesn't this worldview kind of discount that, like make it, you're not really working towards like social ideals, because you're kind of trying to rise above them, but or treating them as is, right? You're not really working towards those goals and ideals. So I'm wondering if there's a contradiction, then how do you really navigate that? Because I feel that that effort and holding those ideals is also very powerful, from a general karma yoga perspective.
Mhm.
So just have that confusion, like anything, right?
No,
Be it
that's a very
climate
good
change, be
question.
it other challenges that we have in the world today.
What is the book on karma yoga? Of all the texts on karma yoga, what is the book?
I'd say Bhagavad Gita. Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita. So look at the Bhagavad Gita and look at Krishna's instructions to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. What is he asking Arjuna to do? Is he asking him, he's speaking to him about contentment, and he's speaking to him about rising above the three modes of material nature. But he's also asking him to fight this battle. So he's not telling him don't be socially active. You understand?
Mhm.
He's saying get involved in the social concerns.
Mhm.
Be fully involved externally, and internally be entirely content. That's the point that I was making, with the previous question, was if my, let's say, external commitments are resting on the confusion that I need anything external to be happy myself, then when the externals aren't going exactly the way they want to, I become discouraged. Whereas if within myself, I already have found my contentment, there's nothing external that needs to be adjusted for that. Then I can dedicate myself fully. If things aren't going well today, that's okay. If things are going great today, I don't get all giddy about it either. Actually, I noticed this Knicks thing has been such a big thing lately, right? And I saw an interview, or at least a clip from an interview, where one of the Knicks was saying that when we saw the Spurs. Are you familiar with it at all? Okay, this is a big, big thing. They said, both teams had to qualify for ultimately for the finals, but each team had to win the finals in their league to get there. And the Knicks won it. They qualified first. And then they said when we saw the other team qualify for the finals and they were celebrating like they had won the finals, they said we understood we could beat them. Right? They understood. Whereas when the players on the Knicks, they're kind of just like they were more even-minded. But this team was celebrating like the most wonderful, like they've achieved everything. Right? So the yogi that has a steady mind is actually much more effective in the world because nothing shakes them. Everybody else is getting shaken. If things aren't going the way that they want them to go, they become discouraged. So Krishna is asking Arjuna, this is why Arjuna was so confused in the beginning. He was saying, on one hand, you're asking me to do buddhi yoga, apply my intelligence, apply my discernment, find satisfaction within. If you read the whole second chapter, it's talking about the Stita Dhir Muni, the sage of steady mind, right? How peaceful he is, how controlled his desires are, how controlled his senses are, how he's found this kind of contentment within. So Arjuna's like, that's what I want. I want to be that kind of yogi. But Krishna's saying, do that and fight. And Arjuna's like, fight? You're asking me to do two different, at the beginning of the third chapter, he's like, you're telling me to do two things. Can you tell me to do one thing? And then Krishna says, no, there's two types of yogis, right? One renounces action, but the other one engages in action. But with the same detachment that the one that renounces has. And so this is the type of yoga that the Bhagavad Gita teaches. Internal contentment, external action, but from a stronger platform.
Can you ever be prematurely content?
I'm sorry?
Can you ever be prematurely content?
Prematurely content. Well, maybe we're talking about some kind of, the sooner we find that true contentment, the better. But it sounds to me like what you mean by that is like artificially content, not truly content.
Yeah, something like spiritual bypassing.
Yeah, that's very possible. Sure. Mm-hmm. It has to, the spiritual path has to be genuine. Mm-hmm. If it's there for escapism, that's also what Arjuna was being told. You can't walk away from this. Krishna was telling Arjuna, if you go away, essentially what he's saying, what is he? Mityahara, I think is what he said. It's pretending. If you were to go out and Arjuna, you could sit there in a perfect lotus position out in the forest. But if internally you're still meditating on the battlefield, then you're just a pretender. It has no true, valid, transformative power. Your so-called spirituality. So certainly people can do that. That's why it's so important to learn this path in an authentic way, because it can definitely be taught as just a way of escapism. Sure.
Quickly, with that, can you
let us just get you the microphone, please.
Oh. With that you just said,
yeah.
Can we always fall back? We can always fall back, right? Like we can come to contentment and be at peace, but it's still a practice, right?
There are places in the Gita where Krishna say when one's achieved a certain platform, they never come back. But yes, people have gotten very high and still come back. So
because I feel like I've even done that.
Sure.
There's something today someone said to me, because I was in my situation feeling targeted in a sense.
Okay.
And I was suffering because of it. But I had felt contentment for all this time and know that I can always be the master of my reality with my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But there I was saying I was targeted again.
So you're not quite the master yet.
Right. Right. I mean, I did it. Yeah.
But you could, but you will reach that point where you fully master.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. I'm not quite the master yet either.
Okay. Take some time.
Yeah.
Would
Yes.
you say when we are content, we could also be lazy and not that ambitious? So it's something that we need to practice, and if yes, then how?
So it's interesting. Her question was kind of like the mode of passion. Yours is more the mode of ignorance, inquiring to, and confusing the contentment of the mode of goodness with either of those. Okay. But the contentment of the person in the mode of goodness is absolutely nothing like the laziness of the person in the mode of ignorance.
Okay. How would someone?
You see, how is that?
How
How are
would
they different?
yeah.
The mind, the awareness of the person in the mode of goodness is illuminated. They're seeing things clearly and they're understanding something about themselves. For instance, like if you're deeply in the mode of goodness and you've heard well from these sacred texts, you can begin to see through the eyes of the texts and you can begin to understand certain things. I'm not my body. I'm not my mind. I can see that my mind, like generally people say, I'm happy, I'm sad. When you're deep in the mode of goodness, you can see it's not me that's happy or sad. It's my mind right now that is experiencing happiness or my mind that's experiencing sadness. And I can sit here and watch that go on. Even just that right there gives you such power. To be free of being pulled by the mind in so many different directions. Otherwise, I'm going up, I'm going down. No. I can see my mind's doing that. I'm okay. That's contentment, right? I'm okay. Once I'm on that platform, now I'm free to engage rather than being pulled through this up and down, up and down, up and down. The person in the mode of ignorance, they have the most clouded. The person in the mode of passion, their desires are really clouding it. Do you notice that if we're very attached to something, or if someone, it's easier to see in other people, it's hardest to see in ourselves. But when someone has a strong attachment, how their clarity becomes clouded. So it begins to block the truth. Sometimes someone falls in love with someone else, and everybody knows this is a bad idea. Right? No, you don't know him like I know him. You don't. No, we do know him. Right? This is trouble. But that one person can't see because in the attachment has gone so strong, right? Whatever pleasure there is that they're getting out of that connection and whatever pleasures they hope to further get out of that connection have clouded their clarity, and now they're rationalizing and justifying even things that are big red flags, right? So the attachment has become a blocker of truth. That's the mode of passion, right? Mode of ignorance means I don't even have any clarity on what's good or bad or healthy or unhealthy. I'm just really confused on these things, right? And those people tend to become very discouraged and become lazy, is in one sense, apathetic.
How would you say to because there's everyone has a different advice, but in a situation where you have so many ways to follow, how would you say one can stay anchored? If one has to choose one way of staying anchored, what would that?
Staying anchored.
Yeah, like to stay sane and stay aware of yourself.
As we live in this world,
Yeah.
what would be my advice? How to stay anchored?
Yeah, just for example, the situation you gave in, the person is either clouded by judgment, passion, or contentment, or laziness.
Yes.
But if you would say someone would be in that situation, how would you guide them to have a sane?
Or how would I guide a person not to fall into that situation?
Yeah.
Well, the way the yogis say is that there's three things you want to be in your life and part of your decision making and how you understand the world: Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Okay. Shastra means the sacred texts themselves. That here's a perspective that's untouched. It's said that this is the faith of the yogis. Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, etc. That these are apurushaya. That the wisdom in these texts is not some man-created, fallible kind of knowledge. That just like any appliance has a manual to help you understand it, So this world has a manual, and it's these sacred texts, and that they're floating through the air. That the yogis could tap into it, and then ultimately Vyas, compiled it in written form. So that becomes a standard of clarity. And then the sadhu and the guru meaning those that are giving us personal instruction, and the sadhu meaning those who have lived by it, and we can see how, the value that is played in their life. Any decision making that we have to make, we can go to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra and see if it holds. If we have Guru in our life, that can be very helpful. They can, not even that they always tell us what to do, but they emphasize what's important, and then we can see what to do. So if you have those in your life, that's very helpful. And if not, it's very hard not to be controlled by our attachments.
To say sometimes it's the reason is we ignore our instincts and we are being impatient in getting what we want to.
Yeah. What instinct is a bit cloudy as well, right? Because instinct can be God within our own heart, right? The Paramatma that's there that can speak to us. Or it could be the programming in the mind, that's telling us what we need to be happy, what we need to avoid, otherwise we won't be happy. And there's really no truth to it. So again, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra can help us get to the bottom of it and hopefully make decisions based on truth with clarity. Thank you. It's a good question. Yes.
You talked about sattvic associations.
Last question. Okay.
Sorry.
No problem.
Sorry.
You got it.
Yeah, you talked about sattvic associations and sort of cultivating this feeling of clear luminosity. I'm a part of a pretty serious spiritual community that in the past 6 months has experienced a lot of painful interpersonal, racial, and gender dynamics, which have left me feeling alienated, isolated, and angry.
Okay.
And I can't tell if I'm not doing what you are saying we should do, which is to cultivate a steadiness internally so that no matter what happens externally, I feel that. Or if perhaps this community is no longer encouraging my spiritual practice. So how do I discern?
Well, it's not always, those kind of questions aren't always easy. But I'll share this. A good spiritual community will generally have some people in it that have that power to always be positive. If there's no people like that can always bring that positive energy. I have one friend who's a very powerful spiritual leader. And I could see that the way things were moving was that he was going to get called into an area, into a spiritual community that was full of tension and conflict. I'm trying to remember exactly what I said to him. I said something like, there's a lot of complicated negative energy over there, So I said something like that. And he said to me, well, my experience is that when there's a lot of negative energy, all you can do is bring positive energy, If there's no people that have that kind of inner contentment, a lot of that inner contentment is based on faith, and have that clarity and luminosity, especially in the world that we live in today, that communities will fall into conflict, and it'll be painful, and everyone will rationalize and justify their views based on their attachments. So I can't tell you exactly how to figure your situation out. But what we can say is we need to bring sometimes we need to walk away or distance ourselves a bit from a community. I would advise, here's a piece of sattvic advice that I received one time. Never break a relationship with anyone, but especially, with a spiritual practitioner. Obviously, if there's some abuse or something like that, that's another thing. But try not to ever, you can distance yourself a bit, but don't speak words that make it impossible for you to come back together with someone. You know, maybe you've seen some of that. It might be too late.
It might be too late, but it's fine.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with pointing out what you think is wrong here. But there's a way to do that where you don't say you're a bad person, but you say, I can't agree with what you're doing here. There's ways that you don't break the relationship necessarily. There's ways that you can say what you have to say. One needs to be sattvic in order to do that. Otherwise, our passions kind of, it's our attachment speaking. Someone that's very sattvic can know how to always act for the good result. So they'll say, rather than saying, you are this and you are that, they say, I'm sorry, but this decision I can't agree with for this reason. I think you're a wonderful person, but I think here you're mistaken, and I'm thinking of distancing myself, but I wish you all the best. Then you leave room for things to come back together. And many times I've seen that people that respond that way, that they're able to create healing. The way this world is, without that kind of sensitivity, clarity and sensitivity, without forgiveness, we're doomed. And it's so hard to pull together a spiritual community. All the odds are against them. All the odds are against any spiritual community. It's tough to keep the deep spiritual principles in the center, especially in this age we live in now with the internet and the social media and all that. And the loudest voices are often the least enlightened ones. The people that are most caught up in typing away are the people that actually have the most clouded, confused minds, and that spreads rapidly, widely. We all are kind of prone to the victim mentality, always saying, I'm a victim of this and I'm a victim of that, and it's very hard to keep a community together and keep it focused. It takes a lot of spiritual power, it takes a lot of positivity, a lot of clarity, a lot of determination, a lot of tolerance, a lot of forgiveness. Without these things, spiritual communities are doomed. There's not much hope for them. So I'm sorry if that's not an easy answer, but you seem like a bright person to me. So you go ahead and you bring your positive energy wherever you feel it'll be best used. Thank you very much. I hope that's okay. Thank you, everyone. I really like this spiritual community. I see a lot of nice stuff happening here. So thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all.